The next panel is something that I am super, super excited about, and it is all about marketing and partnerships. I'm going to introduce these fine people while they get up here, but I want to welcome Mark Harrison, Gaspare Licata, and Mandy Davis to the stage.
Gotta love a guy who brings his kid up, right? Like, what a scam that is, just to get more applause.
Yeah, I think
seriously.
Everyone
Where is the
likes him
applause?
more already.
Where is the applause then?
Where's the applause?
I don't hear it. This is for you, Francesca.
Mandy is the founder of Darko, based out of Australia. They are one of the coolest and most relevant mountain bike apparel companies. Mark Harrison is the founder of Sponsorship X, a conference that has been at the forefront of evolving the sponsorship marketing landscape for over a decade and a half. And Gaspare, is the CEO of Crank Brothers, a brand that has grown from a Laguna Beach garage to a globally recognized and leading component manufacturer. Thank you all for coming here. And Mark, I kind of want to start with you. You have developed this thing where you've seen the world's best talk about partnerships, from the NBA to the Airbnb to Coca-Cola. And I kind of want to define what a great partnership means. What are the ingredients that you need for a partnership?
Well, I'm going to bake a cake here. I'm going to ask you to indulge me for 30 seconds for a little public service announcement. And, you know, when I was growing up in my hometown, we had no idea what was happening to our people, our First Nations people. And I think about that a lot because I'm the descendant of escaped slaves. Black people and Indigenous people in this country have been subject to violence. One group lost their entire identity. The rest of us were brought here against our will. And I think there's a kindred spirit between Black folks and First Peoples. And I really get excited when I see what Eliot's created here. I think it's absolutely vital. But I will just say this, for those of you in the audience, I'm not a big fan of worrying about the marketing side or corporations to solve these problems. These problems are legislative, they're in our school systems, and they're in our medical system. So I just have to say that every time I speak, because I think it's vital for us to get past the isms. And for all of you who say things like marginalized and underrepresented, let's use the term underestimated. Thank you very much. Okay, the PSA is over. I'm going to talk really quickly about partnerships, and there's so many different ways to talk about partnerships, but there's three things I'm going to leave you with. First of all, if you're an athlete in the room or an event, you are never going to get a company to sponsor you. Companies don't sponsor anything. People do. If you don't understand how to help the woman across the desk from you, or the man, or them, how to do their job, you will never get a partnership. People think, oh, this company's doing that. Yes, the company's objectives and strategies are important, but more important is that person. So first thing you should think about is, how do I help her do her job better? That's the most crucial. In addition to my conference, I run one of the biggest sponsorship marketing companies in the country. We've got a team right now who are looking at a 7-figure brief, so multi-millions for a brand, and they're looking at athletes. And the athletes that they're looking at, the second thing I'd bring to you, is they're looking to see who's already doing the marketing. It's like if you're a job seeker and your LinkedIn page sucks, you have no hope of getting that job. Nobody looks at your resume anymore. So what I would say to all the folks out there who are looking for that great partnership, that what really is important in that second piece, those brands, what they're looking for is who's trending, who has favorability scores that are high, who has sentiment. Maybe you don't have the following yet, but a key to a partnership is understanding that you can bring something to the table that the big company can't. And that often is a point of view, we heard it earlier, or a voice. So I'll pause there.
I mean, I think that that's so important. And Mandy, we've talked about kind of the alignment of values and having those shared values in thinking about kind of what Mark just shared of helping the person across the table from you, maybe that you haven't even met. How do you think about shared values from a company and athlete standpoint?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I think shared values are really key. I think for us at Darko, with all of the partnerships that have sort of come into play, I feel like we never went out looking for it, or we never sort of said, oh, we want that athlete or we want that team. Generally, they came to us, and I think that really speaks to that they sort of understood who we were and our values. So a lot of our partnerships were people that wanted to be a part of what we were doing, and so I think we're just really naturally aligned because of that.
And you, Gas, you have something to say?
I'd love to jump in, and please excuse my accent. Please make an effort to understand me. I think it's so important that each company understand the athlete in front of them, and not just in a superficial level. And before we saw a lot of different people, like Jess, you need to get to know her deeply to understand what she can offer. If you expect Jess to win a downhill race, maybe it's not the right person that you're looking for. If you're looking, if you're
rough,
Ouch.
but if you are, yeah, that's why when you build a trustworthy relationship, you can be very honest. But if you look someone very fun, someone that can come with an idea and deliver the project from from the beginning to the end, Jess is the right one. If you need someone to help you develop a high-performance product and test it at the highest level, maybe Greg is the right one. So to me, once you understand who's in front of you, you understand what they can give you and what is the value of what they can give you.
Gas, can you touch on maybe the difference between like a short-term alignment and a long-term alignment? We've talked a little bit about like building trust, right? Like if you just hire Jess and then you fire Jess the next year, that's not really building that much trust, and it's not really that authentic either, because the brand is changing its mind every year.
A friend of mine taught me, hire slow and fire fast. And the reason is, with the athletes, is the same. You need to really get to know them before having them be part of the family. Because if you want this partnership to be successful, it needs to be for the long run. What do you think, guys, when you see an athlete that has 25 sponsors on his Instagram feed, and then they change sponsor every year, and every year they have a different bike sponsor? Would you trust them? Probably Santa Cruz benefited by having 10, 15 years Greg riding his bikes. But if he would change his bike sponsor every year, that wouldn't work. Bernard Kerr and Pivot, they're very well aligned, and there is a deep connection between the owner and the bike sponsor.
Like me and Crank Brothers? That's
like you and Crank Brothers. I didn't want to promote Crank Brothers, but if you want, we can do it with Greg. How many years have you been riding our pedals?
That's probably enough.
Yeah, I don't think he paid enough for this airtime.
No.
Just saying.
I mean, he set the goalpost, and then you keep moving the goalpost.
Mark, when you talk about helping the person across the table for you, what does that mean?
So I'm a huge believer that every human being has a scab. And my analogy is, when you fell off your bike when you're 4, your mom told you not to pick the scab. I go into meetings and I look for the scab. And then I peel it a little bit, and then I want to get it to bleed a little bit more. And what I mean by that is, everybody has a boss, everybody has a board, everybody has investors, everybody has competitors. So I'll give you a real life example. In Toronto, a big bank, maybe dressed in blue, sponsored Taylor Swift coming to Rogers Centre and also out here in Vancouver. So I was trying to get into another bank, maybe not blue, and I said, I've got an anti-Taylor Swift idea for you. And I got a meeting like that because I knew from listening to all my friends who are in bank marketing that all the other bank CEOs were frickin' pissed that the blue bank got Tay-Tay. Scabs. You're bike riders. You know what I'm talking about.
And Mandy, maybe off the back of that, I think when you think about partnerships, you've talked about like how can people be different? Like to Mark's point, like how can I do something that helps me build community or have my own personality? Can you just like talk about that uniqueness of a person?
Yeah, sure. I think like for us, we have a lot of ambassadors. So we have a lot of, just people on the ground, like in different countries. So we sort of have ambassadors, and then you get up to professional paid athletes. So I think for the ambassadors and for people that are starting out, it's like, yeah, how can you be different than someone else that's next to you? You're both competing, you're both probably maybe winning some races, but what are you doing other than that? So are you helping in your community to coach some kids? Are you giving back to trail building? What is it that you can do that is not just racing and building a profile in the industry and giving back, I think, to the industry? So that's probably something that we always look at, that people that are engaged in actually giving back to cycling and building something.
And so now that we've kind of painted this picture of partnerships and what they are, I kind of want to move to this idea of like marketing through athletes and ambassadors. And so much of the time, I think we think of this like be all end all, like a Greg Minnaar, like, oh, if we got Greg Minnaar, that would be everything. Like he could do everything. But Gas, we've talked about like people have weaknesses. But it's true. Like you can't use one athlete for everything. And so when you think about sponsoring an athlete, like a brand has to have a point of view as well. So like how do you develop that as a brand, and how do you think of your point of view?
Yeah, it depends by the goal that you have for the company in that moment, or what is in your plans. If it's to deliver frequent contents, you cannot have a professional athlete that is difficult to reach because he's racing for 6 months, and then you need to organize the crew, and then you need to send the crew. Maybe someone that is a content creator that has not racing to be attending at that point can be the right person for you to promote the product. But let me add something that for me is very special about tonight, and Tiffany inspired me before, is the butterfly concept. There is one thing that is the same between these people. Someone like Jess, that she was having a safe job, a marketing job, to leave the job and do what she loves, and building something from scratch, to me means that she's someone very brave. As Greg Minnaar, when I was with him at the hospital 2 years ago, and after crashing and almost staying paralyzed, the only thing that he was worried about was being protected for the next season. And me and his wife were trying to convince him not to race. And 2 weeks ago, he got a third. And Bernard Kerr, that is a rider, team owner, entrepreneur, content creator, he doesn't think that those things are impossible to do all at the same time, but he's able to do it. So all these people, and you too, Eliot, and you too, Eliot.
Thank you.
They never stop.
I'm not going to invite you.
They never stop to things that looked impossible. They just make it happen. And because impossible, like Muhammad Ali said, is a big word for small men and women.
Beautiful, Cass.
Yeah. Thanks, Tiffany.
That deserves a round of applause.
Cheers to our butterflies.
Okay, I'm gonna try to segue off of that. Non-endemic partnerships. I think so many athletes, brands, it's the thing that people think about, like, oh, if we could just break into non-endemic partnerships, like out of the industry, that's where the money's at, and things like that. You have talked to all of those people, you understand them. What do they look for, and why do we get that so wrong? Why do we struggle so much to do that?
Is that question for me?
Sorry. Yes, Mark.
Okay. So I made the comment before about the scabs, but let's be clear, that gets the conversation. Then you need data. And we have a bit of a theory in our office called impact over impressions. So don't write this down, but our team right now is, the brief I was talking about is for Cliff Bar. And for Cliff Bar, the concept is we're going to look at, Gas was talking about, a portfolio of partners. There'll be lead ambassadors, there'll be influencers, there'll be people that are up and coming. One of the things the team's looking for is trending. So If you've only got 5 followers, well, just tell us you grew your audience by 500%. But then more importantly, tell us what you've done with those 5 people. Tell us how you've impacted. There's a lot of people in this room that have started charities, that are trying to start charities, that are figuring out what their impact is. That is really, really important, is to quantify those things and look at impact. Those data points, the big ones and the little ones, I often tell charities that if you don't have the funding to subscribe to social media listening tools, to look at things like sentiment, brand health, attribution, blah, 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 get together with 10 other charities and share. You need data. Data is the Band-Aid to the scabs.
Wow. A follow-up to that is, do you think that we in the bike industry have that our data looks good enough for those brands? Is it that we are just not showing it in the right way when me as an athlete pitches to Coca-Cola or whatever, or are we just not showing it in the right way?
At the risk of offending 83% of the people in the room, it's a lack of confidence. And I see it all the time. I could never ride these hills. Darren doesn't have enough insurance, or the bike park doesn't. But when it comes to going to talk to corporations, all of a sudden that fearlessness is gone. I don't get it. I was 4'6" in grade 9 with an afro that would take up the stage, okay? And I wore velour with track pants on the bottom. But my mom told me that every day I could do whatever I wanted. And I mean that in business. You know, my mentors have taught me, shoot the shot. Don't ask somebody, like if you're looking for a job, don't ask me for an information interview, because I won't even answer you. Tell me you want a job. If you want to sell somebody something, don't ask them, oh, I want to come in and talk to you at RBC about who do you partner with. I do this. This is why I'd be great for RBC. Who should I talk to?
Be in the room. Mandy, I think off the back of that, you've talked about putting yourself in luck's way. And so it kind of goes back to that feeling of confidence. Like I need to be there. I need to do the thing. I think that's such a nice way to put it. You can articulate this a lot better than I am.
Yeah, I guess that concept for me is people sort of say, or they're like, oh, I guess you look at certain people in your life and you're like, why have they been able to be successful? Or you look at Darko, why did we get those opportunities that we got? Why did Muckhoff come to us and talk to us? How did that happen? And I think, it's not just that you're lucky, it's that you actually, you have to put yourself in luck's way. And I think about that as in pretty much planting seeds. It's you're growing your garden, and it's small interactions, and basically, I don't know, you plant the seed and you don't really know what that plant's going to look like, but you've just got to let it grow. And you can water it sometimes, and sometimes you don't even bother watering it, and it's still something comes of it. So I guess it's really just, I don't know, doing the steps and doing the work, I guess being in the room constantly, and then good things happen, I guess.
And so, go ahead, Mark.
Just a quick follow-up. I do want to make sure that people, I'm not trying to be glib here. There is a process, and you have to do the work. And so whatever that work is, for example, I have a journaling system where I look back 1 week, 1 month every year, and I look ahead 1 month, 1 year every day. Sorry, I said every year. I do that every single day of my life. I go back a week, back a month, back a year. Our sales teams, you don't show up at the Monday 9 o'clock BD meeting without having your HubSpot up to date. You do not show up. You have to follow a process. So I agree with you. One of my business partners, she's a 35-year-old unicorn. She says manifest it. But man, this woman is so regimented. She was a former Olympic rower. Be a rower. That's the only way to sell. Be a rower.
And I could add, I guess as well, the planting the seeds. Sometimes it was even, in my case, I'll take the example of Carl Strait, our first ever athlete.
Yeah, so I want you to tell this whole story, because I want you to tell the story, the third theme that I want to talk about is building athlete desire. And I think that Darko and you, Mandy, have been so good at doing that. Know start kind of from the beginning of you going to Sea Otter, setting up the tent, and just meeting Kyle and everything?
Yeah, so I guess basically I don't know if it's a story, but I guess how it started, or that seed that I planted was, I really wanted to get into the US, and we'd only been like 3 years in. We're still a baby company. I'm like, but you know, I don't want to just sit in Sydney. I want to go to the US. So I actually set up a company, shipped some stock there, started shipping orders, and had like a whole little baby US operation going, which was pretty much a failure. Didn't work. No one really bought the stuff, knew who we were. But at the same time, I went to Sea Otter. We actually did do some sales, and then I did some PR, like, Darko's now in the US, we've got our office. And basically a year from that, we got an email from Carl. I didn't meet him at Sea Otter, actually, but he knew a friend of a friend that was saying, oh, I think 661 had just cut their clothing line, and so he was kind of out of a sponsor in January. And he was talking to a friend and said, oh, this Australian company really wants to get into the US. And by that time, we'd already pulled our US operation, but you know, that email came through and we're like, he explained who he was, and we're like, what? And yeah, it basically all went from there.
Because you were saying that you guys haven't really chased any athletes. You know, it's all been kind of inbound. What do you put that down to? Because I think that's like a brand's dream. We're just that good. Yeah, it's all good. No.
Maybe we're just lazy. We didn't go after too much. I don't know. I think it's probably that we never chase. Like, say, when we got Commensal Markov, it wasn't that I didn't chase, but it was like I sent a text message to Max Commensal saying, hey, I've got some money, and you know, I'd really like a downhill team. Like, who do you think is going to be there, like, available next year? And I was not in my, you know, wildest dreams ever thinking that was going to be Markov. And then Max didn't actually get back to me, but 2 weeks later I got a call from the team manager.
Yeah, that is so special, and I think that you, Mark, have this experience too, right? Like, you have to attract talent to the conferences, and we've talked about the idea of like this hero's journey and making people feel like they are part of, you know, a movie when they do things. What is the key, do you feel like, to building desire for the products you create?
So my favorite marketing book ever written is called Story. It's written by Robert McKee, M-C-K-E-E. It's about this thick, no pictures. I did read it. And it does not say the word marketing at once. He is the leader of the USC Film School scriptwriting, and I'm a big believer that everything is a movie. You've experienced our conference, and thanks for coming back this year. But I script those 2.5 days out like a movie. And if you don't have time to read that book, just study the hero's journey.
I think, to give an example of what Mark is talking about, I spoke at Sponsorship X, and we went and we met up at a bike shop, and he had everyone's bikes rented for them, and so they came from a different session, got their bikes, met, you know, me, and, you know, met the rest of the team. Everything was perfect for them. We then rode from the bike shop to this perfectly curated meadow where food was already there, chairs were set up. We went and had, you know, this really nice talk between Mark and I, and then, you know, they rode off to their next adventure. And so I think that idea of what does it mean to like create amazing experiences is underappreciated. And Gas, we've talked about like the difference between authenticity and being transactional. How do you feel like you avoid being transactional?
It all starts by knowing the consumer and understanding why people buy bikes, in our case. Bikes for us are not a refrigerator. This is a very emotional purchase. This is something that we are passionate about, something we love, something that we dream all the week about, the moments that we're going to spend on the bike by ourselves or with our friends. So once we deeply understand that, that's the moment that we understand that it's not just the sum of the different components that someone is buying, but something more. It's the sum of the value that Mandy was talking about. It's the sum of the connection of the people that endorse and represent you. And I believe you cannot fake authenticity. So if all those connections are real, people is going to feel it. I believe the consumer is very smart. I believe the word marketing today is associated too often with something being fake. So I tend not to use the word marketing, like the guy that wrote the book. I recommend really to build a deep connection, and those are going to reflect into the brand that you represent, into the products that you represent.
And maybe last question, if all three of you guys could give the athletes and aspiring athletes here, or I mean, people aspiring to anything, but no, sorry, we're just going to go with athletes actually. I want you to give them a piece of advice. Like, what do they miss? Because I think that it feels so difficult. Like, every athlete in here, I'm sure you guys, all the brands, like, you get messages, emails, DMs saying, can you sponsor me? What is one piece of advice that you would give them to help them achieve what they want to achieve? Like, the goal is not to get a sponsorship, but what is the piece of advice you would give them to, like, what are they missing in terms of working with a brand and being a true partner? Go ahead, Gas.
Understand the other people and the company goals. Only if you understand those, you can provide them what they're looking for. The second one to me is be yourself. So once you are yourself and you understand who is in front of you, you understand if there is a match. So these are, to me, the two most important ones, together with something that Tiffany was talking about, is being a butterfly, believe that you can make it. So the third one is trust in yourself and not giving up because the first 1, 2, or 3, or 4 doors, they don't open, because maybe the 5th or the 6th or the 7th will open.
Mark?
I said off the top that you sell to people, not to brands. So understand the person, find out as much as you can about them, and go after them. And then I would just say, you know, I've had my own businesses. I have 5 now for 30 years. And I wake up every day and I still hustle. So it's going to be a hustle. You're not entitled to a sponsorship. I'm not entitled to a client. I have to earn my living every day.
Okay, my recommendation is kind of like it's baby steps. Like, I find we have so many young kids coming to us and they say, yeah, they just type, oh, can you sponsor me? Give me some free gear. Or they expect a salary, or they expect all these things, and really they haven't done the steps to get to where they need to be. So I think it's like start baby steps and start, even like you said, almost showing up in the kit, looking good, or, start doing the things to get recognized, start creating your social media, start doing the community, but whatever it is, the lane that you want to do is really start to build that, and don't have the expectation that you're going to be a professional paid athlete right away. That is something that you have to work towards, and you have to build that. And even once you make it, you're still building and changing, and then the game's always changing. So you've got to continue to do that forever, really, and be willing to put that work in.
Thank you. We're going to go to Q&A, but that was incredible panel. Thank you. Question to Mark from Michelle from Indigenous Women's Outdoors. Some challenges with Indigenous grassroots programs is the concept of ownership. This comes out of the mountain bike industry often as an exclusive rights. Do you have any thoughts on ways to build authentic relationships that help these underestimated groups meet their goals?
Well, thanks, Michelle, because Sandy, your colleague, speaking at our conference, so I appreciate that.
Sorry to interrupt. Michelle wins a pair of VIP Joyride passes from SRAM.
Woo! There you go. I think I might have forgotten what the question was, but I'm going to give this as my answer, which is there are some groups out there in the Indigenous communities that are really, really great at what they do in terms of building partnerships. So I actually work with a creative company in Toronto that is Indigenous-led, so I would say find groups that are successful and learn from them. I'm not an expert, but they can probably share with you how they've navigated it. And I would say the one thing that I've seen with those groups is they've done a really good job building their community long-term, and when the brands were ready to work with them, they had a community that they could bring them into. I think the question was about ownership, and I gotta admit that that's probably out of my expertise.
Thank you. Question to Gas from Vince Scully. Is the global downturn in the bike industry changing your marketing strategy permanently? And how is that affecting your partnerships? And Vince wins a $250 gift card from Crank Brothers.
it does not affect at all. In our case, we have been very prudent during COVID. So we are the same amount of people that we were before COVID. We have the same athletes that we had before COVID. And I must say something about that moment. When COVID was still not good for the bicycle industry, I remember that even there, having a direct and open relationship was the key. When some companies fired the athletes with an email or even without an email, we just picked up the phone and we called those ones that they have a contract with us, and we asked, can we pay you maybe in 6 months, 9 months? And everyone said, don't worry, just let me know when you will be able to do it. And to me, that is the key. These people are great people. But great people need to be treated as they deserve. So if you're open, you can manage even those difficult moments. So now it's still the same. We are back, and we are doing the same thing we were doing before.
I think that like, just to say something that is like, I feel so strongly about, is that brands totally miss that side of it, because not only is that good for your bottom line, that you get to be paid, that you can pay athletes in 6 months, but you also got to retain those athletes. Those athletes will do things for you that they wouldn't do otherwise, because there were brands that asked me during COVID to do that. I said no. Like, there's no way that I'm going to let you do that, or there's no way that I'm going to continue to ride for you. But because you have cared about the athletes, and brands like Crank Brothers have cared about athletes, it builds a human connection, right?
And the other athletes, even those ones that they don't work with you, they see how you treat the other ones.
Yeah, every single person was talking about how, like, yeah, this person didn't pay me, they suck, like all of these things. And I think of it as peer influence. Like, how can you get me to influence Greg or Jess or Bass or people like that? Okay. Yeah, we said Crank Brothers already. Question for Mandy from Wilson Lowe. Confidence, or lack thereof, in underestimated mountain bike communities and markets is often a function of self-discrimination. How can visibility and representation in partnerships change this? And Wilson wins an EDC light tool, pair of composite pedals, and socks from One Up Components.
Okay. I'm not sure if the question is like about me being a female and believing that, or if it's about representing people. I'm not sure. I read it two different ways.
Yeah, I think one thing that I think would be interesting to talk about in that way is something that you have said to me, which is like, there's that saying of you have to see it to believe it, but you've also talked about it the other way, right? Like, you have to see it to believe it. I have to be able to see the vision.
You have to believe it to see it. Yeah. That's what I always say. Basically, yeah, you have the see it to believe it is really a farce. You have to believe it to be able to see it. Because if you believe it, then you can create it. And if you don't believe it, yeah, you can't create it. So I think it's the same thing I was talking about the athletes, that you progress up, like say in anything that you're doing in business. Like say my belief when I first started the company was, I can create better clothing than I think is available right now, and I can also influence the culture in mountain biking that I thought was too motocross and not really focused on lifestyle and having a good time. And so I guess my belief was, that was my belief initially. And then once you sort of start doing that, then that grew my belief. Well, now my belief is, this. And then 2 years ago, we were like in the Vital MTB survey. They do a survey and they say, if you want to buy a mountain bike jersey next year, what brand would you buy? And we have been third the last 2 years and fourth in pants. So I was like, wow. So then the belief is like, wow, we can be one of the big players in the industry. So I guess, yeah, your belief will drive what you can see. So you've got to keep believing, and that will also evolve and change over time.
Thank you, Mark, Gas, and Mandy. That was very, very good. Very, very good.